And after this event, somebody needs to plan another event outside, so we can make these motherfuckers uncomfortable. Alright? And when you start the revolution, start the revolution, start the revolution, get out and do something. Start the revolution, start the revolution, start the revolution. It's time to organize. Now every second that goes by is another second that's destined to perpetuate lies. With the red, white, and blue alibi, supremacists try to justify the sins of the founders and nullify the ill-gotten gains. Blood stain on the plains, Africans in chains, Nagasaki remains. The enormous superficial sprawl of communism. They bombing and children with the bombing and killing. In the name of God, wage a holy war on the villain. Mamas want to pay that price for that old stealing. Why back gas on Capitol Hill, ask Bill to reveal civil rights, man, the threat is real. You ain't gotta go to Baghdad, Kabul, or Mogadishu to know how these facts gon' treat you. Defeat through propaganda. Our heroes, they love the slander. We only pause and they plans and grandeur. Demand your right, get your hands up. Get them off, make hypocrisy. From the land of genocide and slavery, second-class citizenship ain't so safe. And so, start your revolution, start your revolution, start your revolution. Get out and do something. Start the revolution, start the revolution, start the revolution. They got to organize. Let's start the revolution. Let's revolution now. Before the end of this soul, this sword is black, face in the sky. Well, my brother, are you surprised? People ain't surprised about that. Started with self-destruction, now it's back destruction. Overcuts the government and president corruption. You know they be making no promises and running from minorities and black. They forever stay running. See, we try to return to the fundamental. One nation, under God, independent of the sky is critical. For America, high tax, robbing the poor is a ritual. Plans to operate and conquer is a ritual. Right here at home where we need to be. In discovering, acquiring, maintaining liberty. Change the way to live. Keep the name in the almanac and history book. All together, let's overthrow King George Bush. Keep it clever with the Sons of Liberty book. It's only made from Indians and taking it back to Bush. So, start your revolution, start your revolution, start your revolution. Get out your hands up. Start the revolution, start the revolution, start the revolution. It's time to organize. That they somebody who made a definite impact upon this campus right here by injecting some real love in education. The man's heart is genuine was to come up and the game was going on up in this joint. Talk to him about the people right now.
All right, thank you very much.
Dr. Jerry Ball, ladies and gentlemen.
How's everybody doing? Everybody all right? All right. What you are witnessing in part is a segment of when Head Rock and the War Machine and I get together and give these presentations. We do them under the name of Capital Resistance. And we're going to give you, I'm just going to run through a quick segment of what we try to do with this and try to make it pertinent for what we're doing, what we're talking about, what we're gathered here to acknowledge this afternoon, or this evening rather. Everything that we do, I think we need to do it the way Dr. Huey P. Newton talked about studying law, right? I study media in the same way that he studied law. I study everything in the same way, in the same vein that he studied law. The hip hop and the performances you were hearing tonight come out of this same kind of idea. To learn the game, to better know how to circumvent it, if not destroy it outright. Okay. Just real quick, I don't know, I hope everybody can see this. But to put everything in context, whether we're talking about Gina, whether we're talking about the levees, and I do not call it New Orleans. It wasn't Katrina. It was not Mother Nature that did that. It was the levees being blown. Okay. But just very simply, what we're trying to address, I am running for the presidential nomination of the Green Party. I'm also a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement and trying to cover as many different organizational outlets as possible. What we're trying to address here, whether you want to get into electoral politics, if you do, how many of you vote? How many of you vote? How many of you are tired of voting for evil, whether it's the lesser of or the predominant of? Okay? Kwame Ture said it best, we don't vote for evil, and that's why we're putting this campaign together to give you an option. all right? Because this society continues to be based on slavery and the theft of indigenous lands, or the people known as the Fourth World, all right? On top of that, we have a prison system that not only builds all the furniture you all sit on in your classrooms, but does stuff for McDonald's, Victoria's Secrets, and it's the use or it's the abuse of these laborers, all right, snatched out of former enslavement to be put into prisons to answer the question once raised by Sidney Wilhelm. Yes. What do you do with the Negro when you no longer need him?
Come on now.
And it's on that basis that allows workers to be exploited. Because if you can pay somebody 10 cents a day, why would you need to pay somebody union benefits? And on top of them, the leisure class sits. Some of us come from that class. We chill a little bit, we work a little bit, but we get to, you know, go to happy hours and we take trips and drink our Chris and whatever the hot drink is. But all of that is meant to support the ruling elite. All right? They sit atop this colonial pyramid. All right, so we're trying to explain that. And it's out of that that comes this whole issue that's got us here this evening. All right? Gina. And what happened here on campus, right? And what we want to make clear, my man Henny said it right. A noose is the equivalent of terrorism. All right, I want to make sure everybody is clear and remembers clearly what the hell a noose is meant to represent. And when somebody hangs a noose, whether it's 2007 or 1937, it's terrorism. All right? President Moat, I heard, said he was going to charge whoever with a hate crime if they caught him, right?
Whatever.
They need to be jacked up on the same charges that got Jose Padilla locked down.
That's right, that's right.
And everybody else they said are terrorists.
That's right.
All right? Because you all call that terrorism. Right? Am I wrong?
No.
You all with me?
Educate them.
Look, like Henry said, we are people of culture, all right? And as you know, we need a little feedback. This is not some opera house. All right? So if that's terrorism, we want to make sure that you all remember that this is terrorism. Okay? And that noose represents terrorism and state-sponsored terrorism. Don't forget that. State-sponsored sanctioned terrorism. And that's also, while I'm at it, real quick, remind you, as Ward Churchill did, what terrorism is. Terrorism is not what disenfranchised, oppressed groups do in response to an all-powerful state. The word comes out of its origins in what the French did to its people. What the state does to the people is keep them in line through terrorism. That's why you have a military. That's why the gun is on the cop's hip, to keep you in check. All right? So if more properly understood, whether no matter how you might think of what happened on 9/11, what was being done that day was counter-terrorism. I guess nobody agrees. That's all right.
They scared, man. They taught black people to be scared to speak out for their rights in this country. And they did a really good job.
Okay.
Y'all need to make some noise.
All right, I'm not even going to speak on this slide. I think it's quite clear. Now, the way to keep this in check is basically messing with us through image. All right? Image becomes a primary mechanism, as Fanon said, to commit psychic violence against people who need to be kept in line. So that's how this very African Hebrew could be turned into this. Let me say that again. Hebrew is the first crucified savior born of an immaculate conception in an African matriarchal society. Western imperialism turned him into this.
Tell him.
Okay. Western imperialism in this country turned the accurate depiction of the so-called Boston Massacre, in which Crispus Attucks, a black man, was killed.
Yes.
But when Paul Revere wanted to rally the troops to go fight the British, he used this picture. And I don't know if you can see it, but it clearly omits the blackness of the man being killed. Why? Because how are you going to get white people to fight white people based on the white people killing black people? They're like, okay, we just killed 10 of us last week. And again, this is done, Fanon said, to maintain us in psychic violence. Malcolm X said that the police do domestically what the military does internationally. We need to be clear on that and understand our relationship to the police. And this is not about individual police officers. This is about the organization itself.
Yes.
All right? Of course, we live in a capitalist economy. How many people have their professors actually tell them and talk about what is capitalism? You need to check that. Most of us don't understand. Thank you, bro. But Kwame Ture said it very clearly, as it says right here, capitalism makes us think we are thinking when we are merely reacting to stimuli. Many of us are reacting to nooses, are reacting to special events like the Gina 6 or like the levees. But what we need to be doing is recognize that these are events that represent an expression of a system.
Yes.
And it is a system that must be dealt with different action and politics, which is why we are not running as a damn Democrat and a Republican. It's the Democrats and Republicans that got us into this madness. And what is that madness? Again, very quickly, 300 people have more than the poorest 3 billion. 1% of this country owns 90% of the wealth. Black America still has the same 1/10 of 1% of this country's wealth as we had in 1860. Please don't get it twisted with Jay-Z and Kanye and whoever the hell else is on TV this week. We have nothing. The average black family at the end of the day has 0 net financial assets. All right? And within that, 20% of our population has 50% of the wealth. So what are we really talking about? And this one here, I don't know if anybody saw, this came out in Forbes magazine last week. You must read Forbes. You must read Fortune, The Economist. People who are talking to each other, not expecting to be interrupted by our gaze. This came out, look at this map. This tells you the dollar density in the world. The darker the region, the more money. Now look at the African continent. Nigeria in the house. Yeah, broke as hell. We gotta get our Pan-Africanism together. Nigeria is a British creation. Ghana is a British creation. You are Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba. The United States.
Y'all better make some noise out there.
Come on, man. Broke as hell. The only people who are billionaires in that continent are a white South African and an Arab Egyptian. Okay? So let's get it together. I don't care where you come from. Pan-Africanism, if you are a descendant of Africa, it don't matter. Everybody should be down with Pan-Africanism. It's the only way out of this madness. That's all right. But I just want you to see how that dark, beautiful continent is white as hell in this slide. Derek Bell, who graced this campus a couple years ago, and almost nobody showed up in terms of our community. And this is why they attempt to omit him, but we need to support people like Derek Bell, famous legal scholar, came up with critical race theory, law professor, genius. Said if the nation's policies towards blacks were revised to require weekly random roundups of several hundred blacks who were then taken to a secluded place and shot, that policy would be more dramatic but hardly different in result than the policies now in effect, which most of us feel powerless to change.
Wow.
All right? So again, don't get it twisted over what comes on TV or in the film or whatever. All right. All of this is started because of something like this. What to do with black people? When you know you are oppressed, the historical record is clear. Everyone rebels. Everyone rebels. And this photo, this image strikes fear to this day in the seats of power. So what do? They create a 13th Amendment.
All right, teach them.
Right? Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, whereof a party have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. The 13th Amendment, again, read it right here, does not abolish slavery. You just must be convicted first. And this is why Michael Bell is caught up in the situation he's caught up in now. And the Gina 6 is caught up in the situation they're in now. We can't just drag these niggas off to jail, so we'll come up with a court case. and actually say that black men who defend themselves against white men with shotguns are themselves to be convicted for assault.
Okay.
And theft.
Kenny was right. We are way too accepting of all this nonsense.
Yes.
Way too accepting of this nonsense. We got too many PlayStations and iPhones and shit. Prison industrial complex, I'm just going to speed through this. They're just locking everybody up. Black women are the #1 growing population going to prison. So while they're doing video home nonsense and all, bling bling Barbies, they're prepared to lock you up. Most people are in jail for nonviolent drug offenses. Now I know I don't need to take a poll, an informal poll of College Park students who have dabbled in so-called illegal or illicit drugs. But the idea that getting high should put you in prison is insane. It's just another excuse to get people locked up. Chris Rock said it right.
It is a felony.
If Latin America and the Caribbean produced tobacco and America grew pot, we'd be high as hell, we'd be getting locked up for cigarettes. And what happens with black people? And the reason I'm focusing on black people is because, and really I need to be focusing more on Native Americans. If you can treat a population, if you can have as the basis of your society the oppression and theft and imprisonment of a poll party politic, then everybody is in only descending degrees so-called free. The society itself is based on incarcerating, oppressing, and stealing from a majority of the world's population. All right? So when it comes to black people, the state has nothing to say. We're not offering you health care. We're not giving you affirmative action. We're damn sure not going to give you reparations. But what we will give you is 24-hour service at the local jail or maximum security prison. As Glenn Lowry said, and I don't know if you all know this, but Glenn Lowry, a black man, used to be one of them conservative Henry Louis Gates types. The Negro professors. He even himself had a political 180 over this issue right here. Where the state meets black men is in the jails. That's the only service this country is ready to provide for you. What's going on with the distribution of wealth? We just got to understand a little bit more of that. Again, I'm going to just rush through this. We don't have a lot of time. But basically, if you look at the density in the country here, where the darker it is the most unequal between, or the widest gaps between the rich and the poor, all throughout the South. All those former so-called slave states, wherever we are, the gaps are widest. Now, why we don't know this, I'm really just going to run through this real quick in terms of hip-hop, because we got to talk about hip-hop in the music industry. It must be understood that the FBI's stated project was to make sure that young people like yourselves never heard of Assata Shakur, never heard of Herman Bell, never heard of Sundiata Acoli, never heard of David Gilbert and Marilyn Buck, so that you would not have a revolutionary consciousness. So how does it work in 2007? You set up a media system based on these tenets. You can change them, they're interchangeable, don't really matter. White supremacy, capitalism, and patriarchy. That's to sum it up. Education and journalism establish the boundaries of thought for you. So whatever comes across down the line later on will sound natural and normal, like bottled water, like mass and we have too many people in prison. Okay. The goal here is to manage outcomes, to make sure that whoever becomes famous will not be like Paul Robeson or Bob Marley or Head Rock, who would use their fame and wealth to actually help people make change in their lives and in the world. So they set up a system to make sure that the neo-colony of black America stays intact. Black America, real quick, is distinct population, black communities, ghettos, projects, out of which they take whatever they need, in this case hip-hop, package it, resell it, make billions a year off of it, and remarkably, not one ghetto has disappeared except when they knock it down for a baseball stadium and move everybody out to PG County, and then lock them up too. In terms of the music industry, 3 corporations own and distribute all the music you hear in the Western world. If you listen to commercial radio or TV, you will live and die and never hear an artist on the radio or see an artist on TV who owns his or her own music. intellectual property right. This country doesn't make anything anymore, so they own your thought, so they can control your thought. They stick it on playlists and payola to make sure that only what they want to get heard gets heard. Radio consolidated ownership. Kathy Hughes is a problem, people.
Yes.
Radio 1 is a problem.
Yes.
If you, well, we don't have time to get into it. Well, one day we'll come back and get into it for real, for real. But the real issue is that Radio 1 has more stations that target Black America than anybody else, and they follow the same format as everyone else. So this idea that a black woman is somehow diverse is insane. And I would say the same thing goes for presidential politics. Obama and Hillary are not diverse.
He got quiet. He got quiet.
Okay, check the record out. Check the record. And then what happens? You get playlists like this. This week, just looked it up today.
Oh my God.
You want to know why people aren't getting mad about the Gina 6? Or overthrowing? Soulja Boy got played 6,468 times 1 week. 1 week. Keisha Cole, Let It Go, 5,690 times in 1 week. That's why you don't hear any other music. That's why so many artists come to these events, because they have no other outlet. That's why we make mixtapes and distribute them as radio, because nobody has an outlet. And none of them are going to give you any room, and none of them are going to give our politics any room. That's why we all have to do underground, guerrilla, all whatever we got to do. And they just sell you their products. AK-47, number 10 in 2005 in terms of product mentions. That's why we got so many young people who want to pull a gat on somebody.
I mean, I gotta say something.
Or at least say they do. I don't know. So you have a system that locks it up real nice and tight. It gives the appearance of freedom, which is the beauty of this system that I hate, designed to make sure that revolutionary thought is removed from your consciousness, to make sure that radical political artists are removed. And by the way, I looked it up today, Jill Scott, one of her new tracks only got 800 spins last week off of a new album. 800, what the hell is that? Okay, well, and that's why we don't hear so many of these artists, but we hear about them. And this is not about hate. Every time I say something about Russell or Oprah, people get mad. Defend them. The problem with Russell and Oprah is that they represent the business class. The traditional radical leadership of Black America or any group in struggle come from the ground up, the grassroots up, not from imposed from above. Okay? And notice what they have to say. She said, as a black leader, I'm not going into black high schools anymore because they don't appreciate the free education they get. They just want toys. How are you going to be a black leader and won't go to a black high school? Okay. Again, they come from the leisure class. Upon our labor and suffering, they sit and make money, and they represent the throne. If we are going to make change, I'm about to wrap up and get out of here, but if we're going to make change, we got to do some things very differently. Who knows who this is? Somebody shout it out. Nobody knows who that is?
That's Michael from Good Times.
And didn't some of you take my classes? Michael from Good Times.
That's what they think that.
I didn't do my job. That's George Jackson, assassinated in 1971, Black Panther Party member. He said we need a couple of things to make change, one of which that we'll focus on here is an aggressive political party that will popularize revolutionary culture. The Democrats can't do it, Republicans can't do it. At my university, Morgan State right now, Tavis Smiley is having a Republican Party candidates forum. They won't even show up. So why would you want to talk to people who don't want to talk to anyone? Okay, all right. So I am running for the presidential nomination of the Green Party. I got to do the politician thing, and so, although many of you know I am not a politician, and clearly from this presentation you see what we're doing here. But the goal is we need people to sign up. I got a clipboard. We need sign up for volunteers. We have Head Rock came up with a $1 campaign. We're asking people we need funding so we can do what we got to do to get around the country. We're not going to get on TV. We're not going to get on radio. So we have to go out and hit the streets hard. And for that, we need to get funded. Some of you remember I teach. don't get no money. Head Rock is a thoughtful artist. Therefore, by definition, until we change things, he cannot be rich and famous. So we need your support. All right? Just give $1, put your name and address on the thing. We can contact you if you want to be a volunteer. Everything is legit and legal. Go to jaredball.com for more information and stay in touch. Because what we're trying to do with the Green Party is add a little bit of Native folks and Native concerns. And we're trying to bring in a few black people. And we're going to make this the true party for liberation in this country right now, right here we go. So as I wrap up, I want to thank you all very much. For more information, again, jaredball.com. Please check us out and all the colleagues and comrades that I work with. If electoral politics is not enough for you, and it should not be, come check us out at the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. Keep in touch with us at capitalresistance.com. Words, Beats, and Life. Hip Hop Nonprofit does a lot of great things, need your support. IndustryEars.com if you want to keep in touch with what the music industry is doing and much more. Again, thank you very much. I will pass around the clipboard. My name is Jared Ball.